one of the things that came up is we need life cycle assessments. We need life cycle assessments for every single species. So do we have one for bison? Do we have one for lamb? Do we have one for veal? In addition to beef, pork, chicken, turkey. So
hello, many folks. Welcome back to the MeatsPad podcast. My name is Vince Kunahara. I'm your host today. Today we have a very interesting episode about Protein PACT. We continue to have these conversations about sustainability. We had some various episodes last year, and this year we'll continue to have more episodes on this topic that we believe we need to. We need to keep pushing the meat industry to be more sustainable. I'm currently in Mexico helping a company utilizing the co-products. We kind of going away from the byproducts term. We're going to transforming it to co-products. So looking at everything that is not utilized by the meat industry, you call it hooves, horns, some of those byproducts that we can turn it into some kind of pet treats, something that can be utilized by the pet food industry. And I think that's a responsibility to utilize 100% of the animal, and to talk about Protein PACT and some of the goals and objectives of Protein PACT. We have Kristi Block, Strategy Director, NAMI, the North American Meat Institute, and we welcome her. Welcome, Kristi. How are you today?
Well, thank you, Dr. Francisco. Really, really good. Enjoy being on this call with you today.
Yeah, we wanted to, we had maybe a couple weeks, what are some of the topics that we'll cover in today, but I think we can start from, what is Protein PACT? I know we'll talk a little bit about your role in NAMI, but I think we're aligned in many things, and I'm happy that Shauna from Marcus Technologies introduced us on an email, like you have to interview Kristi. So take it away.
So the Protein PACT stands for the People, Animals, and Climate of Tomorrow. You can visit the website, theproteinpact.org. Started in 2017 as an idea by the board of directors of the North America Meat Institute. They were having discussions, and they were saying, I'm tired of being behind the eight ball. I want to be proactive as an industry. How do we switch what we're doing as an industry and become more proactive? And so the Protein PACT has really grown from that initial discussion. And the Protein PACT, I like to think of it in two components. There's a communications component. It's so important as an industry. We're talking about what we're doing, sharing that information. But there's another component, like how can we prove what we're doing? And so a lot of what I spend my day on is the measurable component, so the data side of the Protein PACT. So there is a framework that was established and approved by the board of directors in 2021, and we're gathering industry information across 5 focus areas. So we gather information on what you're doing around animal welfare, food safety, the environment, worker safety, labor and employment, and a human health component that we call nutrition, health, and wellness. So a lot of information that we're gathering, and it's really that bigger picture of continuous improvement or sustainability, setting those baselines so you as a company know what you're doing in each of your facilities or a single facility, but that we also have information in aggregate across the industry. Canada, United States, and Mexico establishments can and are able to report if they slaughter or process meat. And so we're gathering that information, and that's helping to tell the story. And I've got some examples of where we've already used that information. So last year was the first year that we gathered that information as an industry, and we were able to use in particular some of the nutrition, health, and wellness information as discussions in DC have been kicking off with like a White House Hunger Summit, so we could tell the story of what the industry is doing with that data there. The dietary guidelines have been in the process of getting updated. So some of that information of what are the vast array of products that we have that might be like low in salt or high in protein, and some of those other claims and attributes that you see on your labels, to tell the story there too, and in those discussions.
What are some, maybe you can elaborate more on the examples, like Protein PACT. You see there's a lot of industry sponsors supporting that. So there's more than just NAMI per se. There's a lot of people, a lot of partners. How can they come together? I would like to learn more about that.
Yeah, I'm so glad you brought that up. Sometimes I talk so much about the Protein PACT, I forget who knows what. So the Protein PACT has a partner structure on the communication side in particular. And Eric Mittenthal is the Chief Strategy Officer at the North America Meat Institute, and he's been very involved with this group. And the partners are all along the supply chain. So from your grain with the National Corn Board, National Soybean, American Feed Industry Association, across all the different species-specific producer groups. So we got beef, pork's in there. I'm accidentally gonna leave some of these individuals out, so we'll try to make sure to link to them. So, but we got your broad array of species in that, and then some further down the supply chain. So also with the North America Meat Institute, just kind of like honing in that group, making sure that we all know who's communicating where, and that our communication messages support each other, but also being able to provide that subject matter expertise, because everybody knows their segment really well, or somebody in their segment who can speak on a topic. So with this partner group, we've been able to show up as animal agriculture in some non-traditional events and spaces that we as an industry hadn't been participating in. We had a presence at GreenBiz. We've been more involved with COP, the climate event that's taking place in October, November, kind of every year. This will be COP 28. I'm trying to think of some others. GreenBiz Financial, they had a big event week. Aim for Climate Summit. And so as a group, we were just showing up in some of those non-traditional spaces, really talking about animal agriculture, answering questions from the investor community as they have more and more interest in animal agriculture and what's going on, trying to understand either the environmental piece or just understand the big picture of how these businesses operate.
How do you connect? Because I love you brought that up. How do you connect the research component and the challenges or the opportunities in the meat industry, and as a platform kind of facing those issues like that are happening? And we can touch about various topics, but I guess I would like to learn more, because I know NAMI, they do a lot of funding, and there's a lot of funds available for some research, but I would like to know if there's some also on that.
Yeah. There's the NAMI Foundation, and they do a ton on the research, and they partner with different checkoff alliances for marketing and education, and other opportunities. And what we're looking at, since we're just getting into year 2 of the data reporting, we got some really good information from that first year as maybe as an industry, what are some areas that we need to improve upon? And what are some information that we need as we look at setting like science-based targets in the environmental focus area, as environment continues to be an evolving and area of big interest, I would say, on the national and global stage. And so like as we were looking at setting science-based targets, which is a goal of the North America Meat Institute, and its members, to have all the members have a science-based target by 2030. One of the things that came up is we need life cycle assessments. We need life cycle assessments for every single species. So do we have one for bison? Do we have one for lamb? Do we have one for veal? In addition to beef, pork, chicken, turkey. So we're gathering all those metrics across a broad array of proteins, which I think also makes the Protein PACT really interesting, because we're kind of putting that all in one framework and keeping it coherent across all the animal species. But that's just one thing that's kind of come up from a research perspective that's needed. And so internally, we're talking with the members, like, do we have these, who are the research institutes that might already have these life cycle assessments? And if we are still missing them, like, do we have a plan of action to complete a life cycle assessment, as it's really imperative to the science-based targets and the modeling framework there?
Do you have something that on food waste? I know we were talking before we started recording on food waste, meat waste more specifically. Have you guys looked into that?
A little bit. So I would say within the environmental focus area, that's probably the biggest question when you look at all our metrics, and I'd be happy to share them with you and anyone else. Food waste is a hot topic under the environmental, but also food waste from the consumer perspective, which is a really interesting thought process of how do we track that outside of our companies? Do we want to take that on? But maybe it's just an educational awareness campaign, and how could we help participate and just educate consumers on, what's the difference between like recyclability and compostability? Because there's a huge just education, I think, gap. I've been learning a lot in this particular area, but we're definitely working on a lot of education and content to help members in this area in the next year.
And sometimes that's the hard part, because I know with the industry, you have primarily people that understand the topic, but when it comes to communicating with the end consumer, sometimes it's an opportunity for a lot of us. I know we discussed a lot about the difference between best by date, freeze by. I mean, all those little things have a huge impact on consumers and what they do about throwing away or keeping them or freezing them. And I think that's key. That's key.
And supply chain, there's a logistical component to all of that too, which is really interesting. So much of this interconnects. Like, the more I get to be in some of these discussions, like, they'll be talking about one thing and you'll be like, oh, but that connects to this metric or this focus area or this person's job. So there's so much intertwined, which I think is going to be one of the tough challenges. So food waste, packaging is also a really hot topic under the environmental, like what packaging is best and how does that relate to food safety? Because, keeping the product safe is really important, but also the storage and how long you can keep that on a refrigerator or a shelf, because consumers are possibly used to a shelf life of such and such timeline depending on the product. So there's just so much that gets intertwined.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's I mean, you touch on packaging, and that's another big topic. I know some folks that I've been visiting with lately about shelf life. How can they optimize shelf life? Instead of getting 20 days or 30 days, how can they get 35 days? And that just an additional day gives you more opportunity to merchandise that product. But I think that's a topic for a different day. Tell us about your role in ANAMI. I mean, besides the Protein PACT, what are some of the things that you're working on?
I would say in a lot of ways it all connects back to Protein PACT. Protein PACT's pretty large right now, and we're kind of a small team that works on the day-to-day side of the Protein PACT. But I also get to work a lot with different committees. So anything that's really member involved, and if it has a Protein PACT component. So from a member education within the committees, like what are they needing? What are they hearing? Being at some of the specific conferences to give a Protein PACT update, but also just to hear like what's going on, how does this relate to Protein PACT? Because Protein PACT in a way is kind of our education. How can we continue to drive the industry forward? So you've got kind of your baselines, setting that foundation of where am I at, and then how do we drive progress forward, and what are the opportunities there. And with many of our companies that have maybe just one USDA establishment ID, I think the value of Protein PACT has been, it becomes a resource guide. Within each metric, we're able to tie any best practice or standard or industry recognized framework to each metric. So it kind of becomes this warehouse of information. So if something comes up and you have a question, whether it's worker safety, or maybe it's an HR question, best practice that you're looking for, you can go to the metrics and then you have all of that in one spot. So even just keeping all of that information up to date, making sure we have that right information in that place. That's a big part of what I'm doing. So a lot of connecting and collaboration.
Is USDA or the government component present in these discussions, or how is that relationship with, okay, we need to also, instead of just discussing in the private industry, but we also need to have someone to do some lobbying, right, for some new regulations on food waste, or how is that step?
So the USDA establishment ID that I brought up before, we're using that as our unique identifier. That way information is trackable to an establishment. The involvement, the presence, I would say, of us with any government agency, whether it's USDA or a policymaker, is usually through NAMI's regulatory affairs team or through our communications department. But we are able to use the information from Protein PACT and go and have a very informed discussion with an agency or a group within an agency to talk about, what's going on in the space as it relates to this issue. So I think that's the value, because now we're able to bring this industry data that the industry has self-reported, and we can say, this is where we're at, and this is how it relates to the topic of the day.
And what do you see? I mean, this is very interesting because you do have that component. By saying that, what do you think in the next, 3-5 years it's going to change? But to what degree? I guess what will be your, not a speculation, but some of the work that you're doing right now, that okay, then the next step is this. I guess we can touch on that a little bit if you want to share some things that, just to be as an update, right?
Yeah. So right now we're in year 2 of the data reporting. So we have a 3-month window. Is what is currently planned from May 1st to July 31st every year. And we're asking the members to report on their previous year information. So this 2023 reporting period, we're asking the member companies who slaughter or process to report on 2022 company information. And then in October of every year, we have our Protein PACT Summit. And this is our celebration of the whole year. We're planning to release every year an update on the metrics that were gathered as an industry. So this year we could potentially have some longitudinal data. Next year, for sure, we would have some longitudinal data in 2024. But over time, being able to see, like under animal welfare, we have a industry goal of animal welfare audits and transportation audits. And so, can we see over time, are we continuing to meet that benchmark with our 2025 goal? Or do we need other help and support and resources to meet that goal? Or what's come up maybe that all of a sudden, we're not having as many transportation audits. So I think that's going to be one of the values, is to see that progress over time. And then if there is a blip, like COVID caused many blips in some longitudinal data, was there an event that hit the industry, or was there something else that came up? And so we need more education and resources around that. So that's kind of the timeline and the plans and how we're planning to use this information gathered.
Excellent. Well, thank you for sharing that. Well, I think it's been good. I think this is a lot of information that we're gonna share some of the slides and Protein PACT so that those folks viewing through YouTube can look at that.
Yeah, and we can make sure to share our 2022 continuous improvement report, which would have been that first year data gathering. As you do look at that one, I always try to emphasize that we had 15 of the 15 largest companies within the NAMI membership report. And so environmental, that focus area, I would expect all of those metrics and numbers to decrease over time as we get more and more of our smaller members who might not have a whole environmental team, or they don't have someone that's fully dedicated to environmental sustainability as their job, because they're wearing so many other buckets and hats. So that's one focus area. I do think over time we'll see a decline. Even here in year 2, I think that'll be a pretty drastic decline. So as long as you know that we had 15 of the 15 largest companies reporting in that first year data, from what I've heard from industry as they go through the reporting process, like animal welfare, food safety, worker safety, we're really comfortable as an industry in those focus areas. They've been around a long time, they've been regulated, we kind of know what to expect. The environmental focus area, it's definitely a changing and evolving space. And so I think we're still trying to figure out, are we measuring the right thing? Does everyone understand what we're asking? And how can we develop the resources to really help the industry make progress in this area?
I love it. Well, thank you, Kristi, for your time. Do you have? I guess I love to just wrap up. Maybe want some of your thoughts on new grad students that are focusing. Yeah, so we focus a lot on research sometimes, meat processing, but sometimes we don't look at some of what's happening, what's going on out there, and in sustainability. I think as I guess in my opinion, in the next 3-5 years, we'll find more classes that are meat sustainability, how to utilize 100%. I mean, we're talking about pet food. How can we have all these cool products, but that actually maybe within a meat science curriculum, we have more of this, because I think it's needed. I don't know what you think, but that's my thoughts.
Yeah, for anyone that's currently in college and grad school, or considering a career in the meat industry or in sustainability, my personal advice is learn what you can. So I didn't have a direct career path into the meat industry. I was a farm child in Nebraska, grew up on a corn, soybean, and cattle farm, and really enjoyed that. Always thought I'd get out of the ag industry, but things kept pulling me back into the ag industry. And I've had a very varied career with some real estate, some early childhood education and policy making experience, but more directly in agriculture, working with international trade teams, working on wheat products, also working in the grain elevator, ethanol, and animal feed space, and then in ag data. And I would say as you transition from career to career, there's always something you can apply to wherever you're going next. And there's a lot of crossover, but there's also a lot of unknown. And even if you think you know a lot in an industry, it's amazing as you dive in how much you don't know under your job. So I think you got to keep an open mind, but apply what you know, and don't be afraid to ask questions and contribute in some of these discussions.
Well, thank you a lot for your time again. I wish we had maybe more time for another episode to discuss, and some of maybe down later this year, or maybe January next year, that you have more information for 2023, right? That we can maybe discuss some of the improvements and what the data looks like. And really happy to have you on MeatsPad. Thank you a lot for your time.